Coming up, in the aftermath of Gamebred Boxing, Conor McGregor calls out Jose Aldo, whilst Anthony Pettis targets a bout with Anderson Silva. Valentina Shevchenko comes under fire for her comments about referee Jason Herzog. Paddy Pimblett calls out Jared Gordon. And finally, could Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev be next? My name is Frank Bonada. With me is Mohammad Sheikh once again. We're here for the MMA Stream podcast, episode 3, coming to you in the aftermath of a weekend without any UFC. But we did have Gamebred Boxing, some former UFC stars throwing down on Jorge Masvidal's his own promotion card. We had Anthony Pettis taking on Roy Jones Jr. We had Jose Aldo taking on Jeremy Stephens, Vitor Belfort taking on Jacare Souza. A pretty fun card, but I think what's maybe more interesting is the aftermath. Straight away, everyone knows the rivalry between Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, and they've started yapping jaws at each other as soon as Aldo had his hand raised victorious against Jeremy Stephens. Mohammad, what do you make of the this old rivalry rearing its head once again?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, right? But I didn't really see this coming, and especially from like Jose Aldo, because like from the fight that happened in the UFC between Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor, the buildup was insane. Like there was this huge rivalry, and then after the fight, like Jose Aldo like asked for that rematch for a little bit, but then he didn't really push for it for a long time, right? And then he sort of like it felt as if like he came to peace with it. Like he was no longer chasing Conor McGregor for that rematch. And then all of a sudden, like him, saying all of that stuff, like, Conor's been running his mouth and blah, 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 calling him out was kind of surprising to me. But then I think at this stage of his career and like what he's pursuing right now, it's sort of like, it fits in well for like both fighters, right? I know that Conor is on a contract with the UFC, but then, Conor does what Conor wants, even when he's on a contract with the UFC, given the history of him fighting Mayweather, even then at that time, he was in a contract with the UFC. So it is something that is possible. I like the idea. I think it's going to sell some big numbers. It's going to be a good payday for Jose Aldo. I think he sort of like deserves that big payday. So, and apart from that, I think people want to see that fight. Everyone wants to see that fight. What do you make of that?
Well, I think I sort of viewed it in a slightly different way to you, in that I just presumed Aldo just had enough of McGregor just talking shit and was just like, just actually shut your mouth and just, you had the chance to rematch me in the UFC. You turned down that opportunity, and now you're still going to run your mouth once I'm out the UFC doing my own thing. Also, bear in mind, like, McGregor's pushing 170, maybe even 185. Aldo's been competing down at bantamweight.
Yeah.
Like, the size discrepancy right now makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, in the way that the boxing world is going right now, anything really is possible. I mean, Conor even took Twitter to call out Jeremy Stephens as well.
That was a funny call up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like Stephens has fought up at lightweight when he was at PFL, I think. So, maybe. But I mean, right now McGregor's actually has a fight booked. Supposedly has a fight booked.
Supposedly, yeah.
The closest he's had.
But trust me, like if Conor gets serious about this, Aldo's gonna do whatever it takes to put that weight on. Even if he has to like swallow rocks, he's gonna do it.
That is very true. Yeah. The rivalry between them was something special back in its day.
Yeah. And sort of the money that it's going to generate. Like if Conor wants to do this fight, if he's all in for this boxing thing with Jose Aldo, it's going to do big numbers anywhere.
Yeah, but right. If Conor's going to do boxing, just go and box Nate Diaz. Come on, that's the one that. True. Yeah, just he's been very vocal in his desire to finish off the trilogy, regardless of the fact that Nate's not with the UFC anymore. And if Nate really is done with MMA, boxing's the place to do it. Conor's already done it once with Floyd, like you said. Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor is the boxing match I want to see if Conor does sort of pursue that route.
Yeah, and which brings me to like Logan's been chasing Nate for that boxing match right now, and like it's been crickets from the Nate side, which is kind of surprising. I guess Nate has something in mind, or maybe there's something going on that we don't know of. That's why he's sort of like not responding to Logan at this point.
I just had a thought, right? This is one of the topics I did want to bring up briefly. Darren Till recently announced that he was going to switch to box. Well, he has a fight in the works that he's going to announce this coming week, I believe. I mean, imagine if that was Nate Diaz or Logan Paul.
That would be big. Yeah,
I know the rumors are Logan Paul, but who knows? Maybe Nate Diaz. Like, it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
absolutely. Yeah, Nate would probably have to go up a little bit, which I don't know if he can. But yeah, that would be an interesting fight. Absolutely.
That'd be wild. Yeah. Also from Gamebred Boxing, Anthony Pettis defeated Roy Jones Jr. He also took to the mic post-fight and said he wants to fight or box Anderson Silva next. That's another one where the weight discrepancy is pretty heavy. But I mean, the two real legends of MMA thrown down. It would be an interesting spectacle. Nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, the Paul brothers have started this strange sort of like boxing, I don't know, platform for people to, I don't know, who've been retired and still come out and, you know, put something on display. I'm not a huge fan of it, but like if it's on, I'll watch it, right? So
yeah,
I don't think that I'm really interested in watching Anderson Silva step into the octagon or even in like the boxing ring for anything at all at this point in time. Even the the Roy Jones Jr. here, right? That was, I mean, he's what, 54 years old.
Yeah.
He was not in like he was in great shape for a 54-year-old, but I mean, come on, like it wasn't fun to watch for, at least for me. I'm not really excited for any of those fights, but yeah, good for Anthony Pettis and Silva to make some extra cash out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's back to PFL after this now, joining the sort of the Super Fight League that's going on. PFL also had an event on the weekend. Brendan Loughnane got a second round TKO win over Marlon Moraes and some other former UFC fighters fighting the PFL champions. But it's not really big enough to properly focus as a story this week. So let's look at some of the big news stories.
Before that, I just want to make one point. I think Gamebred, like Jorge Masvidal, has really found that gap between, he's sort of like filling in that gap for the UFC fighters who wanted to box and weren't getting the opportunity or the right fights on the other promotion, like the MVP promotion for Jake Paul, where, you know, it was solely like focused around people fighting Jake Paul, the card being built around Jake Paul or Logan Paul or, you know, KSI or all those YouTubers, right? So I think Gamebred has sort of like hit the right spot, filling that gap for the UFC fighters or any MMA fighters who are interested in boxing or like are done with their MMA career. So yeah, I think it's a really good one from Jorge as well.
I completely agree with that, actually. Yeah, because you do get so many UFC fighters calling for a shot at boxing against other big names, and most of the time it's not realistic. I mean, the amount of fighters that I've chatted to, like non-ranked fighters or people in the fringes of top 15, and they're like, yeah, I'll box Jake Paul next, or I'll box someone this and that, and it's like, come on, that's not actually feasible. But yeah, like you say, Gamebred Boxing offers that sort of in between, which it sounds like the fighters are getting paid well. So why the hell not?
It'd be interesting to see like what was the payout for the fighters from this card.
I don't know if actual stats will be released, but I heard good things from certain fighters, so we'll see on that. But like I said, let's look at some of the news that's just recently broken. So at the start of the week, one of the big stories was Valentina Shevchenko. The thing is, I feel like the narrative is that she's blaming Jason Herzog for her loss to Alexa Grasso. But the way I sort of viewed that interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour was that she said it was just something that happened in the fight. It was a factor. And I think it's fair to have some level of grievance with that, because it was a bit of a, I don't think it was like a bad error from Herzog, but I thought it was a bit of a harsh decision to make the stand up in that situation. I don't necessarily think it did or didn't impact the end result of the fight. It's too hard to say, but I think her having some issue with that isn't the worst thing in the world. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. Like one, I think Valentina Shevchenko is like one of those really, really competitor sort of mindset fighters that cannot like accept defeat, right? Yeah. That's one big thing. Like even in the post-fight interview within the like inside the octagon, I think I don't know who it was, Joe Rogan, or I'm not sure who interviewed her, but whoever interviewed her asked her the question that so are you looking for an immediate rematch?
Yeah.
And she was like, yes, immediate revenge. So it was either like she's not the best with her English language skills, but I think that was exactly what's going on in her head right now. At that point in time, like it was an immediate revenge. So she must have looked back at that fight, and with that mindset of like, I'm the best, competitor mindset, she must have been thinking that I was winning that fight all, in every facet of the game. And just because of that moment is where, I lost my focus, and, Alexa was able to do what she was able to do. I don't think there's a lot of reality to that, because in the stand-up, like Alexa was cracking her up, right? And that was the reason why she started to wrestle more and took her down. And when she had her down, like, the ground control was there, but she wasn't landing any sort of damage there. So I wouldn't like really blame Jason Herzog for what he did. Sure, it might have changed the fight a little bit for Valentina, because listening to what she had to say about it was, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of strategy during a fight to actually take your opponent down and hold them there. You have to commit a lot to that to actually get it done. And then, you're thinking of your next move and you're trying to strategize what you need to do next, sort of like to maintain position or like to land ground and pound. And all of a sudden the referee stands you up and now you need to refocus. So it just entirely changes everything. So I can understand her, from her perspective as well. But the way the fight was going, I don't think that, she was dominating the entire fight, and it was going her way, even if she had continued to hold her a little bit more on the ground.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair assessment. The sort of thing that I didn't like was that she seemed to, well, both her and Herzog from Valentina's fans, but Valentina seemed to get grief for having issue with that. And I think it's fair enough to have a bit of a problem with that. Like you say, she did expend a lot of both, I guess, mental and physical effort to have that semi-dominant position, even if she wasn't landing and being overly active. I think it's fair enough to have an issue with that. I also think Herzog's within his rights to stand her up in that position. I feel like it's a story that got blown out of,
and I think I think it's more so for Valentina, because like in one of her previous fights, Herzog stopped them in the middle when she was like landing some shots, and I think it was late low blow or something like that. I don't recall exactly, but it was something that was, again, like involving Valentina Shevchenko and Jason Herzog. So I think she already had a bad experience with Jason Herzog, and when this thing happened, she was like, man, like this guy's got an issue with me or something, But I think like it's so difficult to be in that moment, whether you're a fighter or a referee, right? Things are moving so fast and you need to make decisions, and sometimes errors happen. And
fair enough. Moving on, Paddy Pimblett cut a promo from a hospital bed for a rematch with Jared Gordon. Now, this comes in the same week that first Michael Bisping stated that UFC London is happening in July. Second, rumors not confirmed by the UFC, but a lot of journalists are reporting that Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington will take place. It's the headlining fight of this card. Now, first of all, Paddy versus Jared Gordon 2. Is this the best step for Paddy Pimblett? Moving on.
So I think it's probably given his star power and like how he was able to handle himself after the fight, given the fact like most of the people thought that Gordon won that fight, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the people were like, you lost that fight. And I think what hurt him the most was Joe Rogan saying that Gordon won that fight, right? Because Joe Rogan has such a huge following and everybody listens into him. And he was like, I think Gordon won the fight. So I think he was denying that fact. Like he's whoever he spoke to, he was bluntly saying that, no, I won that fight. Like there was no way that Gordon won that fight. But I think in the back of his mind, he had that inside his head that, I probably didn't do enough to win that fight. Right. So now with his surgery and being out of out of action for a while, I think he's probably sort of like thought through that a little bit more, and he wants to sort of come out clean and make, correct what was not done right. And, make a point that, I am that person. I'm not just a hype train, I have that, I have that skill set and Gordon's not at my level. And, I have the star power for a reason. Right. So I think that's what he wants to prove. And I'm given that we've seen the fight, probably this is not the right thing to say, but maybe in his mind and given his confidence level, maybe he really thinks that after his surgery, this is more of a tune-up fight for him rather than going up and fighting someone that's of at a higher caliber, ranked up, in the rankings. Maybe he views this as a tune-up fight for him. So I think given the circumstance of the injury, if the injury wasn't there, I really think that he would have moved up and this would have just lived in the history. This Gordon fight would have just, washed away from people's memories. He would have went up and fought someone ranked because he has the star power to do it. And UFC absolutely wants him to sort of like catapult to the top and be the champion and sell those pay-per-views and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think it sort of kind of makes sense at this point.
Yeah. And also as someone who I'm like a big Cage Warriors fan, and that's obviously where Paddy made his name, and it's where he did drop some losses as well. And he was almost notorious for his mentality in regards to those losses. Not that he's so much of a bad loser, but it's clear that he just really hates losing, like absolutely despises it. And I think there probably is a level of it that he just straight up wants revenge, just like Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah.
That there's that competitor in him. And, look, like I was on the Paddy hype train, and then I was very sort of disappointed by his actions surrounding that whole fight week with the Helwani situation, his conduct post-fight. But look, like, yeah, if he goes out and is able to get a comprehensive win over Gordon and one that is really just clear, black and white, I think that will do actually quite a lot for his brand, I suppose. Having said that, is it missing out on the fact like there are plenty of big name lightweights that aren't, Gordon's not a big name. The only big thing about his name is that he's tied to Paddy, and that there's that controversial loss to Paddy. So apart from that, I mean, like I was expecting like, I don't know, Clay Guida or Jim Miller, like, a real like veteran who's like past their prime but still got the name value. Hell, I mean, Jared Gordon's got a fight booked. He's fighting Bobby Green. I would love to see Paddy fight Bobby Green. That'd be a crazy fight. Yeah, imagine the build-up, like the press conferences and stuff. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just think it's that he wants to get this one back. Yeah, he wants to shut all the haters, and maybe that tune-up factor is in there too. So,
yeah. Also in this past week, it's kind of been ongoing for a while. Paulo Costa has signed a new contract with the UFC, set to make over $1 million or approximately $1 million per fight. It's unclear if that's win and fight bonus or what. It's also confirmed that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be set at 185 pounds. That's his future now, middleweight. the question is Paulo Costa the fight to make for Khamzat Chimaev now that they're both sort of locked in the company and they both need a fight?
Yeah, and I think there's been rumors around that, UFC's trying to book that fight between Chimaev and Costa, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like, is he actually making that $1 million per fight, right? Is that actually true or not? And what, like, does Paulo have that sort of star power that UFC would actually put him on a contract like that? I don't know, because I mean,
he was willing to leave. He was willing to just say, look, I'm done with the UFC. I'm going to go do celebrity boxing and I'll make my money that way. He's criticized UFC for a long time for his pay. And the fact that he's not refuting these claims that he's making $1 million. In the past, he has, when there've been like the fake purses, and that it's been one that, they're showing that he's made more than he actually did. He's the first person to go out there and make it very clear he's not making as much as some people think he is. And the fact that he's not done that this time makes me think that maybe he is getting what he wanted finally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, apart from his contract, I think the fight is going to be extremely exciting, given that they have a little bit of history. We saw the little scuffle that was about to happen, or the little drama that happened outside the octagon. Where was it? Inside the PI, exactly. So I think the build up to the fight is there. I think it's going to be a good test for Chimaev too, because
absolutely.
Paulo can wrestle. He can grapple.
And he's a physical force, isn't he? He's
exactly.
Yes,
he's
huge.
He's not the guy that you're just gonna like one shot knock him out, sort of guy, right? He's gonna be there to stand in front of him. He's gonna be able to like grapple with him, stop those takedowns, throw in his own takedowns, and then he's got the power. He's got the power to knock people out. So it's going to be a tough fight for Chimaev. It's not going to be a simple and easy fight like the ones he's had in the past. And I think people forget like what Paulo Costa is able to do, given his last fight with Adesanya. That was a terrible performance, given like what he can actually do. Like he just
It was the wine.
Exactly. Like blame it on the alcohol, but whatever it was, like he just stood there and got beat up. Like he got took apart by Adesanya, but that's not who Paulo Costa is. Paulo Costa has got a lot more than what was displayed there in that match.
Absolutely. Think also about the comparison between Gilbert Burns, which was Chimaev's last opponent, and gave him the hardest fight of his career today. Was it his last opponent, or was Diaz's last opponent?
It was Kevin Holland.
Sorry, of course, Holland, the rematch, But sorry, the hardest fight he's had to date though was Gilbert Burns, clearly, and Gilbert Burns is a 5'10" former lightweight, and then look at Paulo Costa, who's just this huge. Well, he's 6'1". I swear he's taller than that. He looks bigger than that. He's got the frame of a much bigger man.
It's the secret juice.
It's the secret, absolutely, yeah. That's a fascinating fight. Also, the fact that the UFC, Dana has been heavily hinting that UFC Sweden might be on the cards this year. Khamzat Chimaev obviously trains in Sweden right now. I know Jack Manson's set to headline a fight in the near future against Brendan Allen, I think it is. So I don't know if maybe that's the UFC's plan for it, but regardless, getting Chimaev out there in front of fans, seeing what sort of home crowd pull he has would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, and imagine like Chimaev comes out like he did against Gilbert Burns. Yeah. And you put Paulo Costa in there, he's gonna get knocked out because Gilbert was able to like crack him up.
Absolutely.
Several times during those exchanges. And if it was Paulo Costa, man, it would be a good night.
For real. Well, I think that's just about time for us to wrap up then. We've covered some good topics there. We are going to be back midweek. We have UFC 287 coming now, the big sort of card of the past few months, I think, really. The Adesanya versus Pereira rematch, or it's their fourth fight. You could even look at it that way. Obviously, Adesanya's lost twice in kickboxing, once in MMA, but he's still the favorite if you look at the bookies.
Still the favorite, maybe 4 times the charm.
Absolutely. Well, he won nearly we won 4 rounds and a half of that first fight. Debatably 10-8'd him in the first round, and then just got cracked. Crazy. Speaking of Gilbert Burns, in the co-main event against Jorge Masvidal, fighting in Miami, which is obviously Masvidal's own turf. It's a crazy card. On there, we've got Adrian Yanez versus Rob Font, Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and a whole host of other exciting fighters. So we'll be there to preview that. We have an interview with Yanez on the channel, so definitely go check that out. We'll be back.
We also have the other interview coming up on Monday.
I'll be chatting with Roberto Soldic, the former KSW welterweight and middleweight champion, now made the move over to one championship. Soldic, unfortunately, he had a groin kick disqualification in his one debut, but he's coming back, and this is a guy that people think that really, it was a surprise that the UFC didn't sign him, but he could be something really, really special.
Yep. So keep an eye out for those interviews. And then we're also going to be doing another episode, a different segment or a different format for, the MMA Stream podcast called Quick Takes. So be on the lookout for that. And, we got more content coming out for you guys. So stay tuned.
Absolutely.